When we think of a Disney cruise, we often think of the happiest place on earth, with childlike entertainment, Mickey and Minnie Mouse and various other Disney characters. Families enjoying fun in the sun on the oversized pool decks during the day, and live entertainment inside the ship or a feature film viewing outside on the deck at night. Disney is magical. It's what dreams are made of for almost everyone. Almost everyone. But for the family of Rebecca Coriam, Disney took on a far more sinister meaning. It brings back all the pain and the memories of the night their daughter, Rebecca, went missing from that cruise ship. The ship where dreams were supposed to be made. The ship that was supposed to be a magical experience for everyone on board. This is the story into the strange disappearance of Disney cruise ship attendant Rebecca Coriam. And this is Gone in a Blink. Hey true crime fans, I'm your host Heather.
And I'm Danielle.
I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. I know a lot of schools here in the U.S. have been on spring break, and some are getting ready to go on spring break. So I hope everyone is enjoying some really much needed time off with family and friends. Welcome to episode 13 of Gone in a Blink. Today's case is one that has a lot of online crime sleuths questioning the safety of Disney cruises, and generally speaking, the safety of pretty much all cruises, and how passengers going missing on these ships have increased over the years and continue to increase in staggering numbers. Today, we're talking about the disappearance of Disney cruise ship employee Rebecca Coriam. So if you're ready, let's jump in.
Let's do it.
Rebecca Coriam was born on March 11th, 1987 at the Countess of Chester Hospital in Chester, England, to parents Anne Maria and Mike Coriam. She grew up with her sister Rachel and two foster brothers and attended Chester Catholic High School while joining the British Army Cadets. After high school, she began studying sports science at Plymouth University. She then moved on to study youth studies at Liverpool Hope University before moving to the U.S. for 4 months to teach sports at Camp America in Maine. She was described by family and friends as being that girl with a bubbly personality who was very well liked by many and had a love for children. In June of 2010, Rebecca traveled to London for an interview to work on a Disney cruise ship. She was among hundreds of other applicants who had the same dream as her, which was working for Disney, and she ended up getting hired. After being accepted for the job, she went to the company's theme park located in Florida for 4 days of training. Once training was completed, she worked on the cruise ship for 4 months as a youth counselor, cruising to the Bahamas where the ships are typically registered. So she made several trips back and forth to the Bahamas, and after working for 4 months on the cruise ship, she put in a request for 2 months off. So during that time, her grandfather had passed away, so she went back to her hometown in England to be with her family. Unfortunately, that would be the last time her family would ever see her again. When Rebecca returned to work, she began working on a cruise ship called the Disney Wonder, whose port is based in Los Angeles, California. She had been working on the Disney Wonder for 6 weeks up until her mysterious disappearance. During those 6 weeks before Rebecca disappeared, the Disney Wonder had been to the Mexican Riviera and through the Panama Canal. She had always been in constant contact with her parents, whether it be on Facebook or Skype or the occasional phone call, but she was always in contact with them in some form. Her last communication with them was on March 21st, 2011, when she sent them a message on Facebook telling them that she would call them the following day. The ship would leave the Los Angeles port that day on a new cruise. Just 12 hours later, on March 22nd, Rebecca's parents received a phone call from Disney officials telling them that their daughter was missing. They claimed that Rebecca hadn't shown up for her 9 a.m. shift and that they had checked her room and even tried paging her over the ship's PA system. However, she was nowhere to be found. So at that point, the ship was off the coast of Mexico and headed to Puerto Vallarta, and Cabo San Lucas. After receiving the ship's security cameras, it was discovered that video surveillance captured her only once around 5:45 a.m. And in the footage, Rebecca is on the ship's internal phone in the crew quarters, and she appears to be in complete distress. In the video, you can see a young man walk up to her and ask her if she's all right. She then nods, and the young man walks away. So the Disney Wonder is a pretty massive ship that can accommodate 2,400 passengers approximately. And it contains around 875 staterooms and approximately 1,000 crew members on board. It is roughly 1,000 feet in length and has 11 public decks. And as large as this ship is, there was no question that Rebecca could have been in an area that was probably not captured on surveillance cameras, although Disney is known for being very high security on their ships. So while I guess it's possible that she could have been in an area where there were no surveillance cameras, I find it kind of, the chances of that being very slim, I guess I could say, because of the fact that there are so many video cameras on the ship.
Yeah, that's something that I've always heard, is that whether it be at their theme parks or even a cruise ship, that they're always kind of in the know, and they have like eyes everywhere.
That's how I feel too. I think that's a really good way of putting it. I think there's eyes everywhere. So especially when you have a massive cruise ship, that's going out into foreign waters, they're going to make sure that they have everything covered. But some may disagree. So as soon as it was discovered that Rebecca was missing, the ship's captain notified the U.S. Coast Guard. And together with the Mexican Navy, they began searching the water for any signs of Rebecca. By this time, the Bahamas Maritime Authority, the Royal Bahamas Police Force, and the FBI were all involved in the search. Rebecca's parents were already on a plane headed to Los Angeles, where the ship was based, and a detective from the Royal Bahamas Police Force was also en route to investigate the ship. Rebecca's parents were initially told that the detective had spent several days on the ship during his investigation, and he was talking to passengers and crew members. However, that was later discovered after speaking to the detective himself. He basically said that he had only spent one day on board the ship during his investigation, and that he had only interviewed a few crew members and hadn't interviewed any of the passengers at all.
That's odd. Why would they say that he had spent so much time on the ship then?
That's a really good question. I guess because ideally you would think that you would need to spend, common sense kind of tells you you would need to spend more than one day on board a ship, especially that massive with that many passengers on board when someone goes missing. And think of how bad it would sound if they came back to the parents and said, oh no, we're only going to be on the ship for one day. We just need one day to investigate this. Think about if that was your child. You'd be appalled at the fact that, and not even just with this case on a cruise ship, but any case where someone's missing. Investigators don't investigate for one day. This is something that you have crime scene. Well, I guess they didn't technically know if there was a crime scene at the moment, but I would hope that they would interview all the people on the ship. Did you see anything? But think about the fact that they didn't interview any of the people on the ship makes me think that Disney might quite possibly be trying to hide the fact that anything went down on that ship. They have a brand that they
really
need
seems
to
like it,
keep up with. Yeah. They didn't believe that there was any foul play involved in her disappearance. It was reported in an article on Crime Wire that Disney had sent a private car with blacked out windows to Rebecca's parents to pick them up. And they were forced to wait. Once they returned to the ship, they were forced to wait until all the passengers vacated the ship. And then they were led through a back door where they would meet with the ship's captain and some of the crew members. The captain gave his condolences to the family, and Rebecca's parents were able to view surveillance footage of Rebecca the night she went missing. So basically, they were led to the ship, but they had to wait till everybody vacated, probably because they just kind of Disney wanted to sneak them in so nobody got suspicious
Didn't want to
or
cause
thought
alarm.
something was...
Yeah.
Exactly. Didn't want to draw attention to anything.
Right.
Her parents felt that Rebecca seemed fine in the footage. However, others feel that she seemed very distraught on the video. And I will post an image of the surveillance video on our social media sites, because even in that one still of her, you can tell she seems distraught just in one picture. So I don't know how some viewed it as her being distraught while her parents thought she seemed fine if they were looking at the same footage. But I will post that picture on our social media sites, and everyone else can kind of form their own opinion on that. But Disney officials told them that Rebecca was drunk and furious on the footage and was seen banging her head into the walls. However, the video gave no evidence whatsoever to support those claims. And that's also not what I saw on the images, but I have not seen video surveillance. So the captain explained from the beginning that he believed Rebecca had probably fallen overboard due to a large wave while hanging out in the crew's pool. They were then given their daughter's personal belongings, which included a pair of flip-flops that were found at the edge of Deck 5, which was the crew's pool area. According to her parents, the flip-flops did not belong to Rebecca and had actually had someone else's name and cabin number written on the side of one of the flip-flops.
Oh, that's sad.
It is sad. It is very sad. So a few weeks after Rebecca went missing, her parents received an email from her bank stating that there had been some activity on Rebecca's bank account and that her credit card had been used. So I thought that was really strange. This sparked hope for her parents that she may be out there somewhere and that she was still alive, and nothing ever came of that. But then in September of the same year, it was discovered that Rebecca's Facebook password had been changed after her family had gained control of it. And it's unclear if anything had been posted to her account, and I found nothing stating that anything had been posted to her account, but I would assume that all of her Facebook friends would have seen something had she have been posting. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because if you post something, if you're friends with somebody and they're missing or something of that nature, and all of a sudden you see posts from them, I don't know if the police department, I don't know, someone somewhere knows if anything has been posted. Her parents may not know, but somebody, anyone that's friends with her would know if things have been posted or something strange, and maybe there had been and they're just not releasing that.
Well, unfortunately, what it sounds like is somebody was probably trying to steal her identity. You hear that happening all the time, because if we think about reality, okay, if she went overboard, it's not like she would have a credit card with her. You know, we know that she had more items, personal items on the ship than just somebody else's flip-flops. That's horrible. My guess is that somebody tried to steal her identity, that they were kind of just testing it out to see if they could use the card. I mean, I don't know, you hear about things like this happening all the time, and while it gives the family and friends hope, it's just sad because that's more than likely what was happening.
That makes absolute sense. So in October of 2011, a journalist for The Guardian by the name of John Ronson agreed to go undercover on the Disney Wonder. He casually asked questions to crew members who had been on the cruise that night that Rebecca went missing. According to reports, crew members claim that Disney, as well as the Bohemian police, know a lot more than what they are saying, and that several of the crew members were told to say that it didn't happen or that they didn't know anything about it if they were asked. Ronson walked around the ship and visited several areas where he thought Rebecca could have been that night. One of those areas was Deck 4, where the jogging track was located, and he thought maybe that she could have been on that deck because she liked to work out. And it was surrounded by lower railings, and he thought it was quite possible that maybe she had gone up there and had an accident and fell over the railings. However, there were plenty of security cameras up there, making it less likely that an accident could have happened on that deck and it not have been captured on surveillance video. When that theory had been mentioned to a deck employee, he claimed that everyone knows, this is a direct quote, everyone knows she went overboard on Deck 5. The worker also claimed that Disney knows exactly what happened and that they have a tape of the incident because Disney records everything, including a recording of the phone call that Rebecca had made the night that was actually captured on security camera.
That's kind of going back to what we were saying, is that Disney has a brand to protect and they're recording everything.
Exactly. They're recording absolutely everything. And what he says makes total sense. But it also makes total sense that Disney would tell the other employees that were working that night not to say anything. Now, that isn't necessarily, the fact that Disney doesn't want them to talk doesn't necessarily mean that anything suspicious happened, or it's not really directing anything towards Disney, in my opinion, because it's an ongoing case. They probably just don't want people out there running their mouth. But on the same note, by telling employees to say that it didn't happen, that kind of takes things in a different direction, in my opinion, because now you're trying to pretend that this tragic event, whether it was anything sinister that happened to her or it was suicide, it was a tragedy nonetheless, and you're telling your employees to say it never happened. Something happened because she was on that ship at one point and then she wasn't.
Well, right. What it sounds like is they're trying to protect their brand, and so not wanting anybody to say anything. But honestly, I feel like that they're more hurting themselves than helping, because by denying that anything happened, I mean, that's causing more question, and to the effect of, okay, it's obvious that something happened. Why are they trying to hide it?
Absolutely. So when Ronson investigated Deck 5, where the crew pool was located, he found that the walls surrounding the pool area were high enough to shield its view from guests, and that the walls were made of steel, which made him wonder how anyone could fall overboard from that area. And that's another thing I will post on our social media sites. If you see this pool area and how high these walls actually were, there's no way that someone is just, you're going to hit a wave and they're going to go over. The walls are too high. Ronson also noticed security cameras that he said could have quite possibly not have been there when Rebecca went missing, and instead were installed after her disappearance. So if they didn't have cameras in that area, but then thought, oh, we better go ahead and install them, I don't know that that makes sense if they were doing that for any reason other than an accident happened on Deck 5, and we didn't have cameras on that deck, but we probably should. I don't know. I don't buy that they didn't have cameras on that deck, though.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Ronson also spoke with a bartender on the ship that claimed, quote, "It's all about the show, even if you're a waiter or a cleaner or a deckhand," unquote. The investigator made small talk with the bartender before cutting to the chase and asking him if he was on board the night that Rebecca Coriam went missing. The bartender paused and then replies, quote, "I don't know anything about it," unquote. After a long silence, he continues, quote, "It didn't happen. You know that's the answer I have to give," unquote. So see, they're being told what to say, and he's straight out being told flat out, it didn't happen. It's all in the phrasing of that to me.
Right.
Ronson also spoke with a woman who worked with Rebecca, and the two had become really good friends, and we'll refer to her as Melissa. And even though our listeners can't see me, I'm using air quotes with that. She does want to remain anonymous. Air quotes. We'll call her Melissa. And so Melissa told Ronson that Rebecca was in a pretty intense relationship with another female employee who worked on the ship by the name of Tracy Medley. She told him that when their relationship was good, it was really good. And when it was bad, it was really bad. Melissa believes that Rebecca may have been on the phone with her partner Tracy when she was caught on surveillance camera looking so distressed. Melissa also told Ronson that Rebecca was the type of girl who liked to take risks and that she always loved to go to Deck 5, which I mentioned was the deck where the crew's pool was, and she would climb over the large steel wall to sit up on top of the boats edge. She believes it's very possible that that's what Rebecca did that night to try and de-stress, and that she may have fallen overboard from there. So that could be one possibility. If she did, in fact, climb over the wall to just sit on top, I would believe that she could have quite possibly have fallen over, because there's not much keeping you from falling over. And it will show that in the photos that I post on social media. There's nothing keeping you from falling over. So if she just liked the thrill of sitting on top like that and feeling free, which I could understand that, it could have been an accident. That's another way of looking at things. But
that's where you could see that it was a big wave that could have came if she was on top of that.
Exactly. A big wave could have come. And I mean, I'm sure in certain areas, the water can be quite treacherous, especially at night. So
right.
Now we're going to get into Rebecca's relationship with Tracy and see if this can kind of shed some light on what Rebecca's mindset may have been leading up to the night she disappeared. So Tracy Medley was the last person to see Rebecca on the cruise ship before she went missing. In an article published by The Sun, Tracy describes Rebecca as being very troubled. She claims Rebecca did drugs and had considered jumping overboard in the past. She believes that Tracy purposely jumped off the boat that night into the dark waters. She states that Rebecca was far from the happy-go-lucky person that her parents portrayed her to be. She says that instead, Rebecca was, quote, in turmoil after being raped as a teenager, used cocaine, and once got so emotional she banged her head against the ship's steel walls, unquote. So that's kind of where that's coming in again, that she had banged her head up against the walls of the ship in complete distress in the past. So it sounds like she was battling a lot of demons. If she had been raped as a teenager and she was using cocaine, it just sounds to me like maybe she had some inner demons that she was battling, and maybe her parents knew that, maybe they didn't. From everything that I have found and all the reports, her parents either seem like they're in denial of what she may have been going through emotionally, or maybe they really just didn't know.
And this is coming from Tracy, that was in a relationship with her, right?
Right. In an interview with The Sun, she is quoted as saying, "I have nothing to hide. My silence was never an admission of guilt. My silence was to protect the image of a friend. I've spent 6 years reading bullshit claims from Rebecca's family that she was a fun-loving, never sad athlete with no issues and a love for life. Her disappearance to them could not possibly be due to suicide. Someone needed to be blamed for this. Unfortunately, they saw that opportunity with me. She felt like a misfit. She felt that her family was ashamed that she was a lesbian." So that's a direct quote from Tracy.
And she didn't talk for 6 years? Wow, that's quite a bit. A time that had passed.
Yeah. I think, she probably talked to authorities, but I don't think she spoke out to the media. And I have mixed views with that. I mean, if a lot of people were trying to pin the blame on her, then I could see maybe stepping back to a certain extent. But on the same note, if this was your friend, and I get trying to protect the image of her friend, but her friend was troubled. And a lot of people are troubled. If it was going to help to find Rebecca, then I don't know. I'm kind of mixed with that, because people can be mean too. So maybe that's why she just never wanted to speak out, because a lot of people probably already had it decided that she could have had something to do with it. Or I really don't know. I don't know why you would keep silent.
Well, for that long, I mean, I get it that, the parents, they probably weren't going to believe the things that Tracy's saying, according to this interview. And so, I mean, you have an image of your child, of how you raise them and how, you want their life to be. And so many times kids, especially when they're adults, they show you one side of their life, but they could be living a totally different life on the other side when you're not with them. And of course, as parents, you hope not, but it's all like a process of figuring out who they are too. So yeah, the parents think, oh, happy-go-lucky, was active in sports and always so bubbly. But I mean, something like rape, that can kind of take that bubbliness away and really, like we had said, cause a lot of demons in their lives that she felt like she had to deal with.
Absolutely.
In ways like with drinking and cocaine.
Well, exactly. And then if on top of all of that, if she felt like people were ashamed of her sexuality, that could have just been one more thing to add to the pile things that she was already dealing with. So she's struggling with that. She's struggling with the rape as a teenager and who knows what else. So, and then you're on a cruise ship and you're on a cruise ship for months at a time, which we'll talk more about those conditions, but just dealing with all of that, everything she was dealing with. And you're right. Your parents always think they know you so well. And to an extent they do, but there's so many things that you don't tell your parents. Even as an adult, there's so many things I don't tell my parents. So, I mean, I don't know, but Tracy met Rebecca in 2010 while working alongside her on the Disney Wonder. And Tracy recalls how the two met at a party where they had been flirting all night, and after that they were completely inseparable and madly in love. She claims that soon after they began seeing each other, she discovered that Rebecca was using cocaine. While going through her phone, she saw a text from Rebecca asking someone if they had more cocaine because she needed some. When Tracy asked her about her cocaine use, Rebecca was very upset and told Tracy that she had invaded her privacy. Okay, to be honest, she wasn't wrong for being mad about that. She did invade her privacy, but maybe she invaded her privacy because she suspected that she was into things that could cause her harm. Tracy described her relationship with Rebecca as being wild, fun, and passionately intense, but she admits that Rebecca was very frustrated by Tracy's lack of serious commitment. It seems that at the same time she was seeing Rebecca, Tracy had a boyfriend who also worked on the ship as a bartender. His name was Devin Hyde, and he had been on shore leave when Tracy and Rebecca began their relationship. So,
oh, wow. So
when
Tracy was just looking to have fun.
That's what it kind of sounds like to me anyway.
Experimenting.
When Devin, absolutely. So when Devin returned to the ship, he and Tracy resumed their relationship. And that really upset Rebecca. And I can see why that would upset Rebecca. And it was almost like Tracy was kind of jerking Rebecca around, you know? It was all a good time. I think it sounds like maybe Rebecca fell really hard for Tracy. And Tracy was just trying to have a good time and maybe cared for Rebecca, but didn't share the same mutual feelings. And so that was another thing that Rebecca was probably struggling pretty hard with. So Tracy claims that the night before Rebecca went missing, she had been really upset with Tracy, and so she began drinking. Tracy says she attempted to walk Rebecca back to her room, but she started screaming and crying and punching herself in the face, as well as, here we go again, banging her head against the walls of the ship. She stated that it took 4 of them to finally get her calmed down. The same night, Rebecca woke Tracy up and told her that she felt like a failure because she wasn't brave enough to jump off the ship. Tracy assured her that she was not a failure and that by not jumping off the ship, it showed that she had something to live for. That makes me sad. That really does.
It sounds like a sad situation.
It's a really sad situation, and she was definitely crying out for help, that's for sure. So the next day, March 20th, 2011, Rebecca ended up having drinks at the ship's bar with Tracy and Devin, which, according to Tracy, resulted in the 3 of them having a threesome in Devin's room. Tracy claims that Rebecca was the one who initiated the whole thing, and Tracy was really excited about it. She exclaims that she fell asleep on Devin's bed and woke up to Rebecca insisting that the 2 of them leave. Tracy stated that she was drunk and really tired and just wanted to go back to sleep, basically just pass out. So she resisted leaving with Rebecca. Rebecca then told Tracy that she needed to go for a walk and that she needed something to put on. So Tracy asked Devin to grab some clothes of his for her to throw on. And at that point, I'm questioning where Rebecca's own clothes were.
Right. I mean, she had to have got there with clothes on.
Well, yeah, because what I found made it sound like they went from the bar straight to Devin's room. So I guess regardless of where you're coming from, I'm assuming you were wearing clothes. So I don't know if it was a situation where she couldn't find her clothes and she just needed to get out of there quickly. And so Tracy was like, okay, Devin, just give her something to put on so she can go for a walk.
That's what it's sounding like, is that maybe she just couldn't find her clothes and she just needed to get out of there.
Exactly. So Tracy said she had Devin leave the door unlocked so Rebecca could get back into the room. However, Rebecca never returned. Surveillance cameras show Rebecca at 4:45 a.m. walking along the deck in oversized men's clothing and appearing very distraught. And I just want to make note, I've seen conflicting reports. Some sources are saying that she was spotted on surveillance camera at 5:45 a.m. and some are saying 4:45. So it's kind of conflicting as to what the exact time was, but it was sometime around 4:45, 5:45-ish. She was on the phone with another crew member by the name of Tracy O'Brien. She told her that she was asked to do a threesome, but that she didn't want to. And Tracy O'Brien told her not to go back to Devin's room, but instead she should just go to bed. That's the last image that was taken of Rebecca. It was reported that the head of security on the ship, Mark Rotherman, stated that Rebecca told him she felt pressured into having sex with Devin in order to continue her relationship with Tracy. However, it's unclear when Rebecca actually told him that. And I suspected that. Did you suspect that type of thing? That, I mean, she was being pressured into having the threesome, and even though she was the one that initiated it, it's almost like she felt like she was really trying and that it would make Tracy happy. And so she just kind of went along with it.
That's exactly what it sounds like, is that she was, she loved Tracy so much. And then it probably hurt her to see her with a guy after the intimacy that her and Tracy sounds like they had shared. So, right, she was just trying to keep Tracy happy and keep her in her life.
Absolutely. And then you got to figure too, who knows if Tracy had ever talked to her before about the possibility of a threesome, but she wasn't into men. Who knows what her thoughts were of Devin as a person in general. And I feel like it's pretty safe to say that when she was raped as a teenager, she was raped by a man. So who knows if she had ever been with a man since then. So being with Devin and Tracy could have sparked up a lot of past feelings about when she was raped, brought back a lot of horrible memories of that. Absolutely. And that would make perfect sense that happened. But private investigator John Ronson talked to Rebecca's father, Mike, about the large steel walls that surrounded the crew's pool on Deck 5 and how that is a strong indication that Rebecca could have committed suicide, although it's not definitive. Mike stated that they had been through every scenario, and when Ronson asked Mike if there was any kind of sadness that Rebecca held on to, he quickly said, quote, no, there isn't, unquote. So he was very quick to respond to that. And
probably in denial a bit too.
That was my first thought, because I can't speak for rape victims. I can only speak on what I think, they could be going through, at least a little bit. And I feel like maybe there would be some sadness, at least in her situation, for her dad to jump on that response and say, no, there's no underlying sadness whatsoever. I feel like he's in denial about that.
Well, and I wonder if he knew about the rape to the full extent. And if he did, as parents, we want our kids to be okay, but that is a very traumatic experience to go through. And so...
Absolutely. So we don't know. We don't know that he already knew about that.
Right.
So there's a lot of questions still that remain unanswered. According to crew members who wish to remain anonymous, Deck 5, where the crew pool is located, is right next to the HR offices, the crew gym, the crew office that takes care of passports, money, and documentation and things like that. And Disney is saying there are no cameras in that area of the ship.
There's no cameras?
That's what they're claiming. But if you have an area of the ship that's meant for crew and you're dealing with things like passports and money and documentation and things like that, I don't believe for 1 second that they wouldn't have cameras in that area.
Neither do I. Especially the ships go over international waters. That would be the one place you would want cameras so that they can document any kind of foul play or anything. So no, that doesn't make sense at all.
Some employees and or former employees have commented that working conditions on the Disney Wonder are quite treacherous. According to an article published in The Guardian, crew members are typically contracted to work 7 days a week for anywhere from between 4 and 8 month stretches. After that, they may be allowed a few months off. Cruise lines have been getting a bad rap because of staggering numbers of disappearances on board cruise ships. According to The Guardian, 43 people have vanished from Carnival cruises alone since 2000, and theirs has the worst record between all cruise lines. There have been a shocking 171 disappearances in total amongst all cruise companies combined since 2000. According to MarketWatch, 400 people have gone overboard from cruise ships since 2000. Another 49 have simply vanished with no known explanation for what happened. So some have jumped, some could have possibly intentionally been pushed over, and some could have fallen accidentally. But it is important to note that Rebecca's disappearance is Disney's first. Rebecca's parents have always felt that their daughter was sexually assaulted and then murdered, and that Disney is covering it up to try to protect their brand, which we did kind of discuss earlier. Disney maintains that their theory that Rebecca was swept away by a large wave and fell overboard is what happened. Other private investigators that the Coriams had hired said they found no evidence of suicide and felt that foul play was a strong possibility. In March
I'd like
2004,
to know what evidence that they have found to support maybe foul play.
They didn't say that they found evidence supporting foul play. They said they found no evidence to support suicide. I would like to know, okay, what evidence would you have found to support suicide? I mean, we have a lot of conflicting reports because we have video of her seeming very distressed, which doesn't necessarily say that she committed suicide, but I would classify that as a little piece of evidence to support suicide. I mean, wouldn't you? I mean, so she was very, very distressed. She was dealing with a past rape as a teenager, which is going to affect you for the rest of your life. And she was dealing with the love of her life kind of jerking her around, and she's got a boyfriend, and she's not committing the way that Rebecca wants her to commit or the way that Rebecca's committed to her. So you could kind of put all that stuff in the suicidal pile, but what have they found that would be evidence of foul play?
Right. It doesn't sound like that they have. So if they haven't found evidence of suicide and they haven't found evidence of foul play, then they haven't found much evidence at all. Goes back to only spending 1 day on the ship.
Absolutely. Unless they have found things that they're not revealing. But I think whether it was suicide or foul play, Disney is going to cover it up regardless. Because either way you look at it, it's a tragedy that happened on their ship.
Yep, and they're not going to admit that.
In March of 2014, the Coriams sued Disney for failing to keep their daughter safe while on the job. The family claims that Disney waited 4 hours to notify the U.S. Coast Guard and nearly 7 hours to notify the authority with jurisdiction over the investigation. Disney refused these accusations and ended up settling with the family out of court.
That's where I'm kind of torn right there, is that if it's a big ship, it could have taken quite a while to figure out that she was actually missing. It sounds like that they had tried to call her and, her room, and called her over the intercom, and when she didn't show up for work. So, depending on what time their footage shows the last they saw her shift was at 9 a.m., so they may not have realized anything until after that time. So that's on one side. The other side that I guess I kind of feel like, though, too, is that like sailing crew, like the captain and then his crew specifically, they're trained to figure out, like they plot positions on the map and can figure out like from 4 hours where they were at, if that's, if she went overboard, so that they could go back and look.
That is true. They could go back and look. And yeah, her shift didn't even start until 9. So it was after 9 that anybody realized that she was no longer on the ship. They don't know what time she would have went overboard.
Right.
We don't know how long after she was last captured on surveillance. So Rebecca's parents have created a website called Help Us to Find Rebecca and have coordinated many fundraiser events to help them in their quest to find answers in their daughter's disappearance. This case is really so heartbreaking because there are so many theories of what could have happened to her. One of which, and I guess the one that Disney is sticking with, is that it was an accidental death and that there was a big wave and she went overboard. And then another theory is that Rebecca committed suicide by jumping overboard, which is very plausible, I think. But then so is the first one, too, because if she climbed the walls, like we said, it could have been an accident. Then the third theory, actually, is that she may have been murdered by the people that she had a threesome with. And it was later determined that Devin was married, and some people suspect he may have wanted to keep Rebecca quiet. So a lot of people are forming their own theories, and if that was one of them and he was married, then that could be why Tracy didn't speak out. The last theory is that she could have fallen victim to human trafficking. So to me, all of those theories seem quite plausible. The last one, maybe not as plausible, just because they're on a ship. I'm not saying that that can't happen on a ship. But in my opinion, I feel like one of the first three, maybe even the first two, are a little more plausible.
Yeah, that's what it seems like, is that probably, unfortunately, she probably went up on those steel walls and then fell over.
Whether that happened on accident or she was that distraught that night and intentionally went over, either way you look at it, it's heartbreaking for the family, and my heart really does go out to her family and everyone who loved her, because she sounded like an amazing woman. Thank you for listening to another episode of Gone in a Blink. If you like our show, please consider giving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and we'd love it if you check out our website at goneinablink@buzzsprout.com. You can also follow us on any of our social media sites. Come follow us on Facebook at Gone in a Blink Podcast or on Instagram at Gone in a Blink Pod. And if you have an idea for a case you'd like us to discuss, you can email us at goneinablinkpod@gmail.com. And always, please remember, stay safe, stay smart, and try not to blink.